Hey everybody, this is Jason Ostrowski, and welcome to another edition of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. My guest for our episode today is no stranger to the podcast. He is the Senior Vice President and Regional Manager out in New Jersey. Always great to catch up with him. I am talking about Ric Martel, and we are going to discuss, number one, the spring market and get Ric's take on what's happening out there in our Fox Roach footprint currently, and number two, handling seller objections. You know, we've been in this seller's market for a few years now, and you know as well as I do that when we go on our listing appointments or we follow up with our potential sellers right now, we tend to hear the same seller objections over and over again. So today, Ric and I want to discuss our best practices when it comes to those objections, give you the tools the next time you're out there to overcome them and help your business. So let's get right into it with Ric, and we'll pick it up on the other side. All right, now I don't know how he got deferential treatment, but I have a guest on that has been on the podcast before, and I am in serious danger of catching the wrath of other regional managers within the company. I have Ric Martel on again today. Ric, how you doing, man? How's it going out there in Jersey?
Everything's going really well over here at the Jersey Shore. You know, I'm right here in Monmouth County, Ocean County. You have a lot of great stuff going on. It's a sunny day, a little windy.
Yeah, I actually love going to the shore in the wintertime. I got to tell you, I tend to go to Cape May. So down there around, you know, say the holiday season is just a spectacular place to be. And I'm sure it's the same up your way. Yeah. So, you know, we're talking about wintertime. We're talking about, you know, the cold season here, but obviously the Super Bowl is now over, and don't get me started on the Super Bowl, but we are officially heading into our spring market. And we're here today. We're going to talk about the spring market, and we're going to talk about handling some seller objections today, because the market, depending on where you are, can be very different. But overall, it is still very brisk out there. It still is a seller's market at this point. So, Ric, I want to start off by asking you our first question, which is, you know, anecdotally, I've heard many agents say how busy they are this quarter, number one, right? Personally speaking, I am very, very busy right now, and that it feels almost like shades of 2021 all over again. Buyer offers that I'm making, and there's multiple offers. I'm like, oh my God, are we going to go through this again this year? You know, I know we were predicting a little bit of a slowdown, but it certainly seems turbocharged for some of us. And then I hear other agents talk about that they're slowing down and that they need to get more business. And so I find the market to be kind of all over the place. What are you seeing out your way in your neck of the woods in New Jersey? And what do you see happening this spring for the real estate market for agents?
I just want to say a couple different things I've been observing, you know, talking with the different agents that work around my area, as well as the managers and sales leaders and sales associates throughout our company. And one of the things I'll say is that the agents who we're sticking with it, like they're really working consistently through that November, December, January, and doing their best to keep in touch with a lot of people and planting those seeds for let's get something going in the new year. A lot of them are busy. Working with the buyer side, they are having the similar problem that they've been having for the last 18 to 24 months, which is the inventory factor. The buyers are ready to do something, but they cannot find something that will match what they want, or they do find something that they match what that buyer wants, but then they're in a bidding situation. So we're still seeing a bit of that happening here with properties that are in good shape and well priced. So those are something to be aware of. And then with I call it still buyer fatigue to a degree. Some of them have missed out on properties. They have not got something over the last couple of years, or yet last year and a half. And they're also faced with the higher interest rate right now, which is ratcheting down a little bit of their buying power. So they may have been able to buy a house for $600,000, but now with the rates gone up, they can only afford a house for $500,000 or $515,000. So maybe they're not getting the same amenities and features in those homes. As far as the sellers are concerned, and this is something that we're running into across all of our footprint of our company, Berkshire Hathaway, Fox and Roach, is that the sellers realize, hey, I can sell my house, I can get it sold, I can get a nice chunk of money for it, but where am I going am I ready to do this? Am I really ready to buckle down and sell my house and then shop with a low inventory market? So those are a couple of things I'm looking at there. But I am hearing the same thing, Jason, as far as some of these agents are like saying it's not really kicking off the way I thought it would. Other agents are very busy. And I just want to say it's a matter of sticking with it. You just got to continue to plant those seeds, and you will reap the wheat. You will reap the harvest by continuing to do that. You just got to stick with it.
Absolutely. There are markets that obviously are tough. There's markets that are, I guess you could consider it a little bit easier. You and I were talking off camera that there's always headwinds and tailwinds with every market. It doesn't matter what it is. You just got to stay consistent in what you're doing, and your business will be consistent in spite of the market conditions that we're in. Getting back to what you were saying just then, I just wanted to touch upon it. When I go out on a listing appointment, the very first question that I am asking sellers right now is, if we sell your home in a weekend, what's your plan? Right? What are you going to do? Do you have some place to go? Are you planning on buying another property? Do you have another house that you may relocate to? Say you have a shore house, right? Is there somewhere for you to go? Because chances are we are going to sell your home very quickly. So we have to start out knowing what the plan is right away if we sell your home quickly.
And Jason, I just want to chime in on that just for a moment, just because when we go out there as the listing agents and trying to get these sellers to get their properties on the market, it's a matter of saying, do you have a plan? And I think the follow-up dialogue is going to be from us as the sales brokers to say, I do have a plan. I do have a formula. I do have a method to how we're going to make this happen for you, because sometimes you bring this up to them and they might be saying, I didn't think it was going to happen that quickly. And we also don't want to make it sound like it's too easy when we're going out there. So we'll say, from me setting the stage and getting your home sold in a timely manner, let's make sure we know what we're going to be doing here. So we got to be careful with our dialogue. The words we use always impact our pocketbooks on how we do it, and then who's going to work with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do want to couch that statement that I made by saying that if everything goes right, we're going to sell your home quickly. I can't make any promises to that.
Right. That's it.
All right. So I feel as though that the vibe that I sensed early on this year when rates started to tick down a little bit was that everybody wanted to jump back in the buying pool. Right. And it felt like we were building up to another crazy market this coming spring. But with the recent rise in interest rates that we're seeing again, I also feel like that could now turn completely on a dime if we reach a tipping point. And so I almost feel like the 7% interest rate mark is on a 30-year fixed loan is almost kind of in that area of a tipping point. Do you feel the same thing, or do you sense something else where you are?
Say the rates went from 3.25% or 3.5% up to 7%. And although the number has doubled from 3.5 to 7, or from 3 to 6, or 3.25 to 6.5, the amount that it costs the buyer has gone up by about 40%. So their payment has not doubled. So I think as the sales professionals, we have to guide these buyers along and say, yes, the rates have doubled in number, but your payment has gone up a certain percentage, not the full, it's not gone up 100%. That's one thing. The other is that we have a couple of nice programs through Prosperity Home Mortgage. One is going to be the automatic rate buy down program that they're offering for the first year to all of our buyers, that if they buy a home, they can get 1 point off of their rate. So if the rate is 7% right now, or 6 7/8, they will get it for 5 7/8, or they'll get it for 6. So that's a good one. And then they also have a program called Refine Your Rate with a refi program, that they will get the application fee covered if they refi their home by the end of 2025. And I think that caps out at around a $1,400 application fee. So there's some good programs available so buyers can get into these properties for a little lower rate. But with that being said, it is a level of frustration the buyer feels when those rates go up higher. And 7 seems to be a number that people start to get like, oh boy, it's hitting that number there. they may change into doing an adjustable rate loan to get a little bit of a lower rate there. That's the one thing we can always suggest that they do, and then refinance down the line once the rates do adjust around. The one thing we have to look at, and I look at this in the Monmouth Ocean County market, the Mercer County market, is that super highly desirable marketplaces to live in. And I think that's something that says of our whole footprint with Berkshire Hathaway, Fox and Roach. So although rates go up, the buyers still want to live in these towns, whether they grew up here or they heard good things about it from coming from another part of the country or another outside of the state. They'll say, you know what, I heard it's really great to live in those areas. So they will make it happen. And Jason, as I said a little earlier, it's a matter of keeping the lines of communication open and networking, because life is going to continue to happen. 31 years in the business, and springtime is when a lot of people say, I'm making my move. That's been going on for all those years, and we're going to continue to see a lot of action happen here. So continuing to be in front of people and being available and providing good, relevant information to them, educating them on what's happening, and they're going to definitely be making their move, and they're going to be selecting our agents to represent them.
I feel like it's going to be a great year this year. I really do, despite the interest rates. And the reason why is, number one, like you said, life happens, right? There's always people that are going to need to buy and sell homes out there. I can just tell you, even with interest rates being what they are, in multiple offer situations with buyers, that has not tampered their demand, at least as of yet. And if you think that interest rates are high, we talked about this before, go into the rental market and see what that's doing right now. The rental market is out of control where we are right now. So it's much better to buy and have that equity, build your wealth through home ownership. I truly believe that. And I think we have to make that case to our potential buyers, our potential clients out there. So, okay. All right. So switching gears, since we've been in a strong seller's market for a number of years now, I feel like there is a level of conditioning that's happened on both the buying and the selling side in these markets. And I think that sellers hear things in the marketplace, they see things on the news, they read articles, and they think that, things may be a certain way, when ultimately it's up to the professional to tell them, hey, you may hear this, but it's actually this way, right? And a lot of times we have to deal with seller objections. And so since we're officially getting into the spring market now, this brings opportunities to win listings. But in order to win those listings, we need to handle, like I said, those seller objections. So Rick, if it's okay with you, I would like to throw some common seller objections at you and ask you to respond to them and impart your best practices for everyone listening out there. Would that be okay?
I definitely am interested in doing that, Jason. We'll work with you question by question, but just one comment I want to make tying into what you said is with the level of conditioning. So one of the things I always tie into every time I'm talking with the associates around my area and anywhere in the company is that you always want to lead with your services, your programs, and your systems. Make sure you have a full presentation ready to outline how you're going to solve their problems and make their move a rewarding and win-win experience. So it's one thing I think we have to take into any of these questions as we go through it. And the level of conditioning will come out, but you're so much better off doing a nice presentation about everything you're going to do for them, and then you'll see where they are as far as their experience goes and how much they really know about the moving process.
Well, I was just going to say it's value, 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 right? We always have to be out there, and our first goal should be to provide value to our clients, because ultimately, number one, that's going to affect our business. Number two, you should know what you're talking about already. And number three, we are in the client service business, right? We're there to provide a service to our clients, and we need to provide that value. So along those lines, seller objection number one, Rick. Now, you've heard this a million times. Doesn't matter what market you're in, but especially now, we have a lot of FSBOs out there that will say, well, in this market, why should I pay agents a commission when I can just stick a sign in my yard, take some photos myself, throw the house online? I know it'll sell in this market after all. Why do I need a real estate agent right now?
And this goes back to the experience that they want to have with this process. And it's very important, once again, to say to them that, true, you probably could sell your home on your own. That probably could happen. People have done it, and there's been different levels of success along those lines. But with working with me as a full-time professional, here's the way I'm going to manage, handle, work through this whole process, market your home, work through the showings, work through the negotiations. And at the end of the process, working with me, I can assure you it will be a very positive and winning and rewarding experience. And most likely, you will make more money because of my ability to manage your property, market it the right way, handle. I always consider the agent as the megaphone to the marketplace. So the agent's the megaphone who gets that property out there, and they're going to get the demand, they're going to get the activity going on. I'm also going to hold your cards close to my vest. Like, I'm not going to let anyone know where the emotion is about you selling the house and where the motivation is about you selling the house. So it's important that you lay those points out for the seller and do a job as the broker representative, and keep that client's information confidential. And then when the offers start coming in, you can help them strategize and guide them through the process. Now, that's one part of it, Jason, getting the offer in and getting the contract accepted. But then getting it from that point to the closing table is probably 65% of the work. Getting the deal together is the front end, 35, 40%. Then keeping it all together, I'm going to help you work through the process of, is the house going to appraise? We have a modifying market right now in some areas. If you get a great number for your house, we're going to get this to appraise so that the mortgage gets approved at the purchase price on that contract. Work through anything that comes up with the home inspection. I have all my contractors. I can help get everything done in a very timely manner. A lot of times buyers want to close in 45 or 60 days. We can make sure that all comes together. I'll also shepherd you through the certificate of occupancy process and the fire marshal inspections, and we'll work through all of that. That's everything I'm doing to get your house sold. And then if you're going someplace else, I'm going to help you find that next home. I'm going to coordinate it so we have back-to-back closings and back to the win-win experience while working with me. So yes, you could put a sign in the front yard and take a few photos. I understand that, and many of people have felt the same way. But what I have found is that when they're working with me, when they're working with a Berkshire Hathaway professional, they're going to end up having a great experience, end up getting most likely more money out of the whole process, and not have that constant feeling of uncertainty or anxiety that I'll help take away from them as we strategize and navigate through the process together.
Well, you know what? I want to add to that. I feel like simply, I almost feel like saying, now I'm not going to say this, but I almost feel like saying, if you're wanted for murder and you're going before a jury, are you going to insist on representing yourself, or do you want the best lawyer that you could possibly find in your corner? Lawyers aren't ultimately the cheapest, but it was worth it in the end, number one, to represent you and give you the best opportunity, but also to protect you, right? They know how everything works in the court system, how to present a case. Obviously, their knowledge about the law. The same goes for real estate. And I find that every time that I've ever worked with a FSBO, I tend to end up doing all the work for both sides because the seller does not know how to do the process, right, of selling the home. And you mentioned a lot of those points, Rick, and it ultimately becomes a point of frustration because in the end, your client doesn't know that you did everything for the seller and for them to get this to the finish line. But anyway, in the same vein, seller objection number 2.
Before we hop over to that, Jason, just one other point I want to make is that when they bring up the fee for your services, a lot of times they like just throw out the commission word, and they feel that that's their big. I don't want to pay that commission. I want to save the commission. But the fee for services is a better word to use if you can use that line instead of saying commission. My fee for my services is this much. But we also work in a performance-based relationship. All the risk is on me as your real estate broker. I lay out all the money for the marketing. I lay out all the money and time to get the property ready for sale. As far as the marketing is concerned, the promotion is concerned, I do all of the boosting, the promotional pieces. If we go with all sorts of tangible brochures, glossy flyers, information, the room-by-room analysis, all that stuff, I lay that all out. I then coordinate all the showings. I do all the communication with you. You're only dealing with one individual, a full-time professional like myself. And then when the offers come in, I negotiate and strategize with you. And I'm only getting compensated at the end of doing all these great services and getting you a number that you're willing to accept that helps you make your goals. So let's keep in mind, it's a performance-based relationship. There's no risk on your side, Mr. Seller. I'm the one laying it all out. I'm working as hard as I can for you. And we have a common goal of making this a real positive experience for you and getting this house sold.
Wow, well, you're hired, Rick. Where do I sign after that? I
think this is what I think I was last time I was on the podcast. I was on with another regional, so I'm glad I'm on by myself. So I'll hopefully get invited back again for a solo presentation.
That's pretty funny. No, that's excellent. In the same vein, I want to talk about the commission structure for a discount broker. Right now, I don't want to get too in the weeds about obviously what we're offering out there, but we do see it all the time.
Right.
Where some seller out there may say to us, well, why should I pay you X percent when the discount broker will do it for far less? They'll sell it in this market just like anybody else would. What would you say to that?
I think this is where you have to use the strength of the brand, the strength of your office's success, the strength of our company's success, and then your individual success as a real estate professional. And for the agents who are newer in the business, I always say, you don't have your Superman cape just yet. You're just getting started. So use the success of the office and talk about how many houses are listed and sold on a monthly basis and on an annual basis. Have that information together, talk to your sales leader, your broker manager about that information, and be able to run those numbers right out there. As you get more success and you're selling a lot of houses on your own, you can say, hey, I'm the neighborhood expert. I sold this many houses over the last 3, 5, however many years it's been. I've represented so many clients. I really know the area. I consider myself an ambassador for the marketplace or ambassador for the neighborhood. And I really see the trends of what's going on out there. A lot of times you're even maybe a homeowner in that town or in that area where you're listing and selling homes. You could say, I have a real vested interest in getting us top dollar for your home because that is going to benefit me. And also I have a lot of other clients that I service here. So I'm always looking out for your best interests. So I think those are some of the key points you need to put out there when someone's saying, ABC will do it for less. XYZ will do it for a flat rate. Well, it's going to tie back to you get what you pay for. And if they're going to try to go through the process of, if I can list 30 houses and sell 20 of them, and I really don't care what they sell for because I'm only getting a small piece of the pie, they're going to try to play the numbers game. Unfortunately, you're going to be the victim of their numbers game because they're not going to be as interested in getting that house sold for the top value that the market will bear and then get it to the closing table. Whereas what I'm bringing to you is a full service, full marketing program and promotion plan that you're going to benefit from. And then from there, you may pay a little bit more, but you can be assured of a great experience. That's one side of it. And it also ties back to my performance-based work. I'm not getting paid anything until we get a number that you're happy with. And I'd be happy to provide you with a few references. You'll be more than welcome to talk to some people that have sold with me in the last couple of years. They'll be happy to tell you a little bit more about how I work. So long answer to a very strong and important question is, when the discount broker situation is put forth, put your Superman cape on or your Superwoman cape on if you have it. If not, tie the one on from the office and the company, and then tie in the references. And I'm happy to have you talk to some of my past clients because you're going to get that 5-star review and rating, and I'm going to give you the same great service.
You know what? That's a great answer. And I'm going to add to that. I was talking to an agent in the Lehigh Valley, and I'm going to give her a shout out, Christina Fataruso. Up there in the Lehigh Valley. She said something recently to me that I loved. And she said, when dealing with another discount broker and talking to a seller, she simply says, well, they know their value and I know mine. And I think that's really what it comes down to, right? Is that we, like you said, put your Superman cape on, right? You have to be confident in what you're able to provide and what your value is, and don't be afraid to fight for that value. I truly feel like, when I go out to a property that I'm the best agent for the job, and I think we should all feel that way. and express ourselves and carry ourselves that way, and back it up, like you said, Rick, back it up with all kinds of information, statistics, anything that you can provide in terms of testimonials, references, all those good things add up to a professional agent, right? And that should be the one you hire.
Yeah, and along those same lines, Jason, is that with what the other agent was mentioning about, they know their value. I know mine is that on top of that, you could say that if I'm listing your home for 6% and they're willing to list your home for 3%, they're willing to give up 50% of their money. Just imagine what they're going to do when they're talking about how much of your money they're going to be giving up.
Yep.
So as much as you think that, you're still going to control what the house is going to sell for, you don't know how that megaphone to the marketplace, that discounted megaphone is going to sound versus a full service broker who's going to really make sure we're getting the top value for your home. So very, very similar along those lines.
And like I said, it's not, and I've said this before, but I mentioned to sellers, it's not about selling your home. Chances are your home is going to sell. It's about how fast it's going to sell and what it's going to sell for. And it's my job to maximize your profits. And like you said, Rick, in many cases, if you hired a skilled professional that knows how to negotiate on your behalf and market correctly, you're going to net a much higher, dollar amount than you would otherwise, especially with discount brokers who, human nature is you get what you pay for. Like you said, it goes back to quality.
I just want to say, with along those lines, that everyone has an experience in their life where they went the discount route and it did not work out. Some people have gone the discount route and it has worked out to a certain degree. But I find that when you are working with something along the lines of selling a top valued asset, a lot of times it's one of the highest assets that people have in their entire financial portfolio, it really makes sense to work with a full service professional who's been trained, who stays educated, who's knowledgeable, who has a real strong brand behind them, tying us all back to Hathaway and what we have going on. It really is important. And I just want to say I've been very proud of being a Berkshire Hathaway sales professional when I was listing and selling, and then managing with the company, and then also being a regional manager. So there's a lot of pride behind this company. And if you look at the Berkshire Hathaway name on a worldwide basis, a most admired company in the top 10 in the world, a most respected company, top 10 in the world, one of the largest companies, top 10 in the world. The key is that the admiration and the respect that sign will command when it's sitting in your front yard. There's no question that your home is being represented by a professional when someone rides down the road or looks online or however it comes about when that Berkshire Hathaway name. It's the halo effect that we're putting over your home, and I think that's going to make a difference when we work together when I get your house on the market. So let's get started.
You're firing me up, Rick. I'm like ready to run out of this podcast and go put a sign in somebody's yard without a listing contract. Anyway. My neighbors probably won't like that. Anyway, all right. So seller objection number 3. Why shouldn't we price the home for as much as we possibly can right now, since it's a hot market, and see what we can get? It's a seller's market, right? Why shouldn't we aim for top dollar right now?
It's a great question. It is the age-old question of, can't we try for a little bit more? Can't we just try it? It comes out a million times over the years, and this is something we've always had to work through. What we have to look at here is that there's a supply and demand factor that goes on out there in the market. And what I always say to the agents when I'm working with them now and we're out there and we talk with the home sellers is that we want to help you outfox the market. It's really what it comes down to. And that's a little bit of a play on the Fox and Roach name. We want to help you outfox the market. And if you could list your property on a more assertive line, on a more assertive path, and be much more, we'll say, statistically in line with the market, use the analysis to your favor, then that is going to get us the most people in the door. And then from there, we're going to get the most offers to look at. And that's going to cause somewhat of a frenzy. It's still going on in some markets and some price points, but get those good quality buyers who, once again, outfoxing the market. We're going to be able to show them that, hey, this house has the value that's being asked for it. And then if you get the emotional buyers which there are many of them out there who are going for it. They're the insatiable desire, the insatiable demand to buy these homes in these nice towns where we all work. They're going to then say, you know what, I'm going for it. I'm going to go for a different number. I'm going to go for above that list price. I understand it's going to be a highest and best situation. So I want to help put you in that type of an environment where you as a seller will price your house aggressively, and we're going to be, the value is there, and then we're going to let the market supply and demand factor take place and go on with it. And the reason we're going to do that, then we don't want to list your property. Let's say, for example, we're going to list your house at 639 and we're not going to list it at 689, is because if we are overshooting where the market is, then what happens is that we're forfeiting control. I don't want to say we're losing it, but we're forfeiting control, because if we're not getting the action, 20 days goes by, 30 days goes by, 45 days, then we're going to be adjusting our sales and coming down. So someone says, okay, that's now, the buyer's going to say that's now playing into my opportunity. So I will then make these offers lower. And then we're, as I said, forfeiting control. The environment is not as strong for us as the seller. So let's not risk the chance of not getting that real good demand. Let's make sure we're priced with the value in place, and then we're going to work through what's going on out there.
You know, what's funny about what you just said is that literally you almost verbatim, you say what I say when I go out and we talk about pricing strategies. Yep. First thing I will say is to back up that point. Because sellers have to put their trust in you when you're pricing their home as what they perceive as maybe undervalued, right? They want to shoot for the moon and the stars. So what I've started to do for agents listening out there is I bring my past 10 listing sales with me as proof in the pudding, like list price as compared to sold price, because I am selling on average probably about 105, 106% list to sale price right now, which looks really good for you, the agent, going out to listing appointments, right? So if you can back that up with evidence as to why they should listen to your pricing strategy and be more aggressive with that pricing in order to negotiate up from a position of strength rather than negotiate down from a position of weakness, I think that's going to carry the day. That's really going to back up kind of, what you're saying with hard evidence, right?
So many good points right there, Jason. And that's a perfect example of putting on your cape. If you have that personal track record and you can say that we're going to list this thing at 630, my average list to close price ratio is 105%. We're looking at $32,000 more dollars potentially. So we're going to be getting you 661 or 660 for this house based on my strategy that has worked so well. So that's one way to go about it if you have that track record. If you're an agent who doesn't have 10 recent closings that you can show those numbers, go through the MLS. You can just bring listings with you and say, here's what they were pricing them for, and they sold over list price or at list price. And you can also pull up the ones that have sold that started at a higher initial price and they came down. You can bring that history out there with you. So it's a little extra work to find those examples, but it's going to help tell your story and build your case as you are out there trying to get this pricing in place. And what I want to mention real quick, Jason, is that we always get into this conversation. People want to pay a lower commission, or they want to go down a discount broker, or they don't want to list with a broker at all. They want to do for sale by owner, or there's the pricing challenges that go on. And as I said earlier when we first got rolling, is that we want to focus on laying out in a complete presentation our services, our systems, our support, our programs, and how we work. Because this way, if we go out on those meetings and they want to talk about how much is my home worth and what are you going to charge me, we're going to lose with price and we're going to lose with our full service fee. We really want to set the stage by saying, hey, we're going to get to that in a little bit. Let's talk about how I'm going to represent you and work with you. So tie that in, and you could even bring in some of your comp analysis and some of your past success into that presentation when you get into why pricing it right makes sense. What the factors are in the first 30 days of being on the market, what happens when it's priced too high, how you forfeit control. You can tie that all into your presentation, and a lot of times it's going to diffuse their energy to go for that real high list price, and also diffuse their question of, can't you do it for less? Can't you cut your commission for me? Can you lower your commission? And you got to tie back the full service fee. So good points you're bringing up here with this, and I'm just trying to tie in how we go about working through this with the sellers.
Absolutely. All right. So last seller objection number 4. We don't need to update anything in the house, do we? Or we don't need to paint, for example. Buyers are going to want to make changes once they move in, and the house will sell in this market anyway, right? We hear this a lot. Like, buyers are going to want to make the changes. I'm not doing anything. What do you say to that, Rick?
My input on this one is that, the primo mint houses sell faster and for more money. Absolute fact. It's been going on for decades. That's just the way it works. The cleaner, the neater the house is, as much as the buyers might say they want to make all these changes and whatnot, the more turnkey it is, the more likely the buyer is going to say, I'll pay a premium price for that pristine condition. That's what goes on. This is where, as a real estate professional, you can really get the listing. You can really earn the listing by having your contractors almost on demand. You can bring in to get this house tuned up and prepped. And then it's, we talk about having a good curb appeal. We also want to have good interior appeal. All that ties together. So my input for this is that if you are going to go down the road of, let's get the house all tuned up and let's get it on the market so it looks like in its best shape, put our best foot forward. And that could just mean some paint and cleaning, or that could mean more extensive work, depending on how much involved that the seller wants to get. So my answer is twofold. One is that if they want to get the house more action and better feedback, it is good to get it tuned up. That does make sense. Make sure you're involved in the process, so you're adding value during the whole process there. That will work out well. In the event they don't have the resources, a lot of people financially don't have the financial resources to pay for all that work. There's definitely some companies out there that will do the work for them, then get paid at closing. I know we have that available here at Berkshire Hathaway. We can help coordinate that for these sellers. But ultimately, if they say, let's just get it on the market, you want to price to that condition. All right. That's my input. Price the house to that condition. And the headline might be dirty but sturdy, something along those lines. It could be something funny along those lines. And then, Mrs. Clean doesn't live here, something along those lines. But if the homeowner is willing to say, hey, go for it, say that, we're going to be a house that may not be perfect, but the location is great. You could have bring your builder. You could have bring your painter and your floor specialist when you're looking at this one. Whatever it may be, bring your interior designer available on your demand. So be cute about it, and you can probably get that property on the market without having them to overhaul it, and you'll still get it sold. But explain to them both directions, and then see what their appetite is for those types of projects.
I gotta say, that's the first time I've ever heard that terminology. Dirty but sturdy. That is hilarious. So
I have to say, I've used that a few times. You need to get the owner's permission on that one. Maybe getting it in writing might even be a good idea these days. But I used that many times over the years, and it got a lot of interest about that house, and I got them sold.
It is very disarming. I do have to say that it almost makes me want to go see it. So, for backing up what you said, I always say that, to my sellers, like, the hard work right now is done beforehand, right? All the sweat equity, all the time, maybe the dollars that you're going to put into the property are going to get it show ready in order to get you the maximized price for your home. The more show ready it is, the better the pricing is going to be. All right. So,
and Jason, just final, like the word you use is the want. The buyer who is going to say, I want this house. I will pay more. I don't mind paying more. I want to pay more. Just get me the house. So that's the whole thing there. If you can get that want factor real high, that's going to help you get more money for the home when it's, the real nice, clean and pristine, A+, mint condition in the headline. That's going to make a big difference there.
Yeah, it always comes down to the emotion, right? Yep. Once you get people hooked with that emotion, not to sound like some kind of psychological warfare experiment, but once you have people hooked in with the emotion, you can drive that price up. through negotiation. So
absolutely. It's like the psychological process of what we go through as the real estate professionals is never ending because of what we are dealing with. It's an emotional purchase. It's a high price tag item. It involves a lot of moving parts, family members, the whole 9 yards. So that psychological aspect of it, we have to be aware how it works, and then we can work through it all. And just from our experience, the really nice listings that we have in primo shape, they sell for those premium numbers, and that's just the fact of the matter.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we talked about, handling seller objections on the listing side, but how about handling objections from the seller on the buying side when you're representing a buyer? Specifically, what can we do as agents and buyers to minimize seller objections to our offers and make sellers say yes? I may have mentioned this before, but maybe I haven't, and maybe I'm giving away the secret sauce here a little bit. But in a previous podcast, actually, I think it was our last podcast, I had 2 first-time home buyers on with me to talk about their journey and their experience. And we've missed out on some homes. Well, I'm happy to say to everybody, because I get this question a lot, did they find a home? We actually went under contract last week. 5th time was a charm. But I will say this. I record a bomb video with every offer I make, so the agent can put a face with a name, right? And then I go over the particulars of the offer, just the important bullet points in that video. And then I do a cover letter, right? And I will run down every single vital point of that contract so they do not miss anything that's in that contract that we're doing. So one of the things that we had done with our offer last week is that my buyer, will buy a home warranty on behalf of the seller with seller coverage that will convey to my buyer at the time of settlement. So that's one thing I wanted to make sure they didn't miss that. So I do a video along with my offer. And I almost to an agent every time I do a video, they're like, I'm stealing that idea. And so I think it helps you to stand out when you're against, 10, 12 other offers. They always remember that video. Just like video stands out on social media, it stands out with your offers as well.
Absolutely. And Jason, this is one of these things where I hope you're explaining that to people when you first start working with them about when you're going to prepare their offer and present it. And not everyone may have access to the BombBomb platform, but they can easily do a quick video on their mobile device. They can text that to the listing agent and say, please forward this over to the buyer. The seller, they're not looking for the seller's phone number. The agent can do it for them, and that'll tie in with their offer. But what's crazy about this is that, keep in mind, we work with the buyers or we work with the sellers. And a lot of times we're representing a buyer and another company or another agent has the sellers. And a while back, the offers were presented in person. So your personality could come across when you're sitting at someone's kitchen table or dining room table, and you could basically then walk outside, call your buyer up and say, here's the counter offer. What do you think? And you can negotiate it right on the spot. But as everything's gotten at a faster pace, and people, time is always money, money, money. And the people don't want to, the agents and the sellers and everyone wants to just get it done faster. We got into the habit of just saying, okay, we're going to email all the information in there. And because that's going on, you are, taking, the right approach with putting together a cover letter and then following up with that video, because that's going to be to a degree, the secret sauce that makes that seller feel the positive energy and feel what's going on around this buyer. And the agent that buyer selects is important because of the ability to present their offer in such a positive light, and that their seller has the confidence that you will get that deal together.
Yeah. And I think, getting back to just other things that just best practices, because we're running out of time here. I just want to go over a couple things that just I see out there is, number one, on the listing side, I'm looking for people to get in touch with me, right? If their buyers have offered. There's nothing I can't stand more than someone presenting an offer to me I've never talked to. I have no feedback from them going through the property. They just shoot me an offer at 11:45 at night, and you have no information. So they don't. So number one, do you as agents, do you seek out information first? Do you try and get as much information from the listing agent to find out what the pain and pleasure points are for this seller, the important things that they're looking for? Number two, do you seek to find common ground when you are on the phone with this agent, right? You want to build rapport. Like you had said, Rick, we used to make our offer presentations in person, right? You want to find common ground with that other agent or that seller, because all things being equal, you want them to like you and to think about taking your offer and be impressed with how you work, right? And then what are you doing to minimize the seller's stress? For example, if they're moving to Florida, do you say something like this in your contract? You can leave any unwanted items in the home at the time of settlement, right? We'll take care of that for you. You want to minimize stress. You want to give them security. That's how you handle their objections. And then work on the margins. And what I mean by the margins is, are you putting a strong earnest money deposit down? Are you shoring up your offer to make it clean, neat, and as little bells and whistles attached to it as possible, right? The little things matter when we're going against so many other offers. And then last thing I'll say is that, go all in. And that really is subjective to your buyer. But in this market, Rick, I think you'll agree that either you're all in or you're kind of all out. There's really no half stepping in this market. So whatever all in is for your client, if they want to make an offer, be prepared to go all in and prepare them to go all in, whatever that means for them. Because if you go in half stepping, you're not going to get the property. Is that kind of what you think about it, Rick?
Yep. If I can just put the cherry on top of that sundae right there, Jason, is just that speed matters, getting your information in a timely fashion and getting it all, having it organized so quickly and in detail. That's a key part of it. Clear communication as a real estate professional to the other realtor. And like you said, developing some rapport, letting them know you're on top of your game. And then the details precede success. So I have to basically, I'm mirroring exactly what you just laid out there. A lot of good points there.
Well, I'll tell you, Rick, it's always, I'm looking up at our clock here. I think we're almost at like an hour right now. I don't know where the time goes when you and I talk, but I want to I have to have one last question for you. Now, last time you were on, we were talking about the wrestler, Ric Martel, right, from WWF days. So a little bit different of a question, but since you're a Jersey guy, I'm going to give you 3 Jersey legends and you can only pick one of them to save. All right.
Okay.
So who do you have? Your choices are, Springsteen. Everybody knows Springsteen, right? Jersey and Springsteen, it's like peanut butter and jelly. Bon Jovi, or last but not least, Frank Sinatra. Who are you taking out of that bunch?
No, I'd say I'm more of a Bruce Springsteen fan than the whole crowd, so I probably would go with him. And I do have a personal connection with him. With one of my sisters knows him, so I have a little bit of a connection there. So he definitely has been a unbelievable representative from New Jersey. And greetings from Asbury Park. I live in Allenhurst, and the next town over is Asbury Park. And the Stone Pony, I go to concerts there all the time. And the summer series, when the wind is blowing from the southeast at night, I can hear the concerts in my backyard from the Stone Pony. So I have a lot of connection with that guy, and I've seen him many times over the years, out in public as well as at his concerts. So I'd have to go with the Bruce Springsteen on this one.
Well, you answer correctly because I'm a huge Springsteen fan. I've been to probably about 10 of his concerts. I actually have an Asbury Park sticker on the back of my car. I'm a huge fan of Asbury Park and the Stone Pony. So, yes, you got that question correct. And, my original question was going to be, how many Springsteen albums do you own? All of them or 98% of them? So
that's funny, but I think I have Tunnel of Love was the only one that I bought.
That's pretty funny. Well, Rick, as always, it's a pleasure having you on. I appreciate your insights. Really good information today, man. So as we discussed earlier, you and I will see each other out in Vegas later this month at the convention. Looking forward to hanging out with you there. And thanks again for your time.
Yep, always a pleasure, Jason. And let's keep in touch as we both progress.
That was the podcast with Ric Martel this week. We thank him for his time. And here are a couple of takeaways that I have from my conversation with Rick. Number one, in regards to the spring market, I think the best term to describe the spring market right now is segmented, right? Where I am, single family homes are still dominating when it comes to being a seller's market, while townhouses and condos are maybe lagging a little bit behind there. And it may be different where you are, but the bottom line is, And like Rick says, just keep doing what you're doing. Be consistent both in your marketing and your daily routine, because it's those of us who treat the business like a business that will reap the benefits from focusing on the right activities every day. It doesn't matter about the market around us. If we focus on the right things, our business will thrive. Number 2, when it comes to seller objections, particularly when we're on listing appointments, I think practice makes perfect, right? We often hear the same seller objections, and it is up to us to practice how we are going to handle those objections. So if we know what kind of common objections we're going to face, and we do, it is up to us to practice our response and get that down so it's very instinctual when we do go out to listing appointments, that it just flows off the top of your head, that you have a coherent response that makes sense to the seller and you overcome those objections. And last but not least, I want to touch upon seller objections from the point of view of you representing a buyer. I think right now in this market, when we're in a competitive environment like we're in, we need to do our best to think about it from the seller's standpoint. How do we make the transaction as easy as we can and as straightforward as we can? And one thing that we can do is provide clarity by sending along a video with our offer, doing a great cover letter in our email for the other agent and the seller to understand what's in that contract, and then making the contract as clean and as neat as possible. Prove you're a professional, fill out the contract fully and completely, follow up with phone calls, try to build rapport. All these things go into making a great offer, and it helps you to overcome any objections the seller may have from their side when you're representing a buyer. Well, that's it for today's episode. We will be back in another couple of weeks with a new topic, a new guest, and as always, if you want me to cover a topic that we haven't talked about yet, please reach out to me, jason.ostrowski@foxroach.com. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to our podcast or left us a review as of yet, please do so. It helps us to reach more people. Once again, this is Jason Ostrowski saying stay safe out there, stay selling, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Everything Real Estate Podcast.